Welcome back. You're watching Newsmaker Live with me, Kendall Burton. Our special guest this evening, Dr. Andre Matthew, along with attorney at law Alfred Alcide. We're discussing the decriminalization of marijuana. Before our break, we were talking about the psychological impact or potential psychological impact of marijuana. I want to ask you, Doctor and Mr. Alcide, with the current stigma attached to marijuana and the claims that the drug has contributed to some of the social problems in St. Lucia, especially among the youth, do you think we are ready to have that discussion that you alluded to earlier?
Oh, we're more than ready. We're more than ready. Because the social problem which they claim are responsible for the young men who smoke cannabis, it is all because of the fact that the society denied them of that right to smoke cannabis if they so choose, because if they are found with marijuana, they're going to be arrested by the police. They're going to be locked in the cell, which is a rough one. Locked in the cell for 3 days, because they have 72 hours to keep you in the cell. Locked in the cell for 3 days, taken before court of law, ask you whether you're guilty or not guilty. You know, now the point I'm making is this: we are more than ready, because all of this, it is, if it was a situation where these young men didn't have to worry as to what happened to them if they're found with a spliff, possibility remain they might even withdraw from this. You know, when you tell a young child, don't go up there, don't climb this chair, joke, this child will want to climb this chair to find out what happened when I climbed the chair. You understand? Because that's what they're inquisitive. That's the nature. This is human nature. We are just naturally inquisitive. When people defy us, we do the things they don't want us to do. I'll give you an example. Now, they may say that this is responsible for maybe the social ills in a society. One of them is gang violence, gun violence. Call it what you want, right? They may say that. I'm not saying no for that. But isn't it possible it is because of the way society has cannabis, which is what causing all this problem? Because I'll give you an example. You are a big man involved in trafficking. You have these little boys. Don't forget, the big boys don't traffic, you know. They have little boys do their job for them. These little boys go and do their job. They come and tell the big man, excuse. So many thousands of dollars gone down the drain. They'll want to hurt you. They'll want to hurt you for losing all that money. You understand me? Now, if we don't have that situation where people have to actually go behind closed doors to do all these things, it's out in the open. And don't forget, if it's out in the open, government have control. It's a form of revenue for the government. Let's face it. It's a form of revenue for the government.
That's one of the big arguments in favor of.
Of course, they have control. They decide, and there is nothing to say because of marijuana you have those crimes. I'll give you one example. I went to the Red District. I went to Denmark, and crime in Denmark is like non-existence. And you walk in a bar, coffee bar, and you get like walking in a restaurant. There's this your chat there, asking you, and it has African blood, Mexican this, and you have a list of what you have there on sale. They're all cannabis, and people walk in there, have a little smoke, they pay for it, they walk out. Do we have the sense of crime we have in Denmark, like we have in the USA, we have in St. Lucia, in Trinidad, and the rest of the world? No. So to associate this cannabis with the advent of criminal behavior, I think I'll put a big question mark on that.
Okay. I want to take a look at our first clip for this evening, and then we'll get your reaction afterwards. It's a statement by the cannabis movement in St. Lucia, expressing the hope that the Prime Minister, Dr. Kenny Anthony, would follow the actions or the sentiments, copy the sentiments of his colleague from St. Vincent, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, who has been urging for CARICOM to start a discussion that you spoke about on decriminalizing cannabis. So we'll take a look at that clip, and then we'll come back and get your reaction to it.
The government of St. Lucia has said that it would not follow certain states in the U.S. in decriminalizing marijuana. However, Vincentian Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has written to the chair of the Caribbean community calling for a discussion on the medicinal and other uses of cannabis. The president of the local cannabis movement says that Dr. Gonsalves has realized the changes being made internationally and is adapting.
It doesn't do much because we're still where we are. We haven't really moved significantly anywhere. We're just educating and advocating. What we need is for the government to actually make tangible steps towards, giving us a license to at least start the research trials in industrial hemp, which is not marijuana. It's the cousin of marijuana. And first of all, before we even decide on dealing with the marijuana issue, at least permit us to start trials in hemp.
Just recently, the question of decriminalizing marijuana was put to the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines some 2 months ago during an episode of Sanford Bell Presents. At the time, he indicated that he was not in favor of the idea. Dr. Gonsalves, in his recent letter to CARICOM, however, made a plea for what he called a reasoned debate led by CARICOM political and civic leadership in the context of the legislation of marijuana. The Vincentian leader said that the matter should be explored at the next meeting of the Bureau of CARICOM leaders scheduled for Trinidad and Tobago this weekend. The cannabis movement of St. Lucia has been applying pressure at a national level for a national debate on decriminalizing the drug.
I think Dr. Anthony has made it quite clear he doesn't want to tackle the issue, but hopefully when he sees Dr. Gonsalves making such a turn, I think that Dr. Anthony is an intelligent, educated man, and all the evidence is there for him to make an informed decision. I trust that Dr. Anthony will change his mind and at least open a discussion.
The St. Lucia government is on record as having said to decriminalizing marijuana, pointing to the potential for negative social and other consequences. Reporting for the DBS News World, I am Cecil Actil.
Let me get your reaction.
Yes. Sir, I have a problem with persons coming to the media calling for decriminalizing cannabis for personal benefit. I have a problem with that. Let me explain that. The gentleman who was just on the air a while ago, I'm not casting any aspersions, but I'm getting a strong feeling is like, look, decriminalize so I can have my marijuana bar and I can make a benefit from this and make a business out of this. Now, when you talk about decriminalizing for personal gains, because personal economic gains, I have a problem with that. It's supposed to be decriminalized for the benefit of those persons who decide to indulge in, whether it's by drinking tea or smoking it. Some people can't even take the smoke. You see, we're talking about decriminalized marijuana. I only think of smoking marijuana. We have never spoken about the benefit of using that as a tea. You know, drinking it in the morning, instead of having a glass of juice, orange juice, with plenty of sugar in it, you drink a glass of tea, marijuana tea. You know? Now, when people come on air and advocate decriminalizing because of personal gains, I have a problem with that. It should be decriminalizing for the benefit of everybody, not for the benefit of a few individuals who may want to open coffee bars and then make profit.
Let's talk about
out of
those
this.
coffee bars and the alternatives. Is there a form of consumption that is safer than another?
No. And I think we must be very clear about how cannabis affects the body, and more specifically affects the mind. Remember, we started by saying that cannabis contains 9-delta trans hydrocannabinoid or cannabinol. It also contains cannabidiol. Okay, but we know that most plants of cannabis have a much higher quantity of the THC. And we say that the THC crosses the blood-brain barrier, goes into your brain, binds to receptors in the brain, especially the cortex, the frontal cortex. Now, when it binds to the frontal cortex, it has a tendency to affect forward planning, to affect forward thinking, and planning. So you find that people who use cannabis have a tendency to be in a state where, you know, they're going nowhere, kind of thing. They wake up in the morning and all they could think about is eating because it stimulates appetite, and the next time that they smoke. So teenagers like that tend not to be very very good at school.
Right, so it doesn't matter whether you smoke it, you drink it, you eat it.
It's the THC going up there, and with the tendency of cannabis to be linked to crime, that is possible too, just as alcohol is, because of the fact that it has an effect on the limbic system, causing disinhibition. When somebody is disinhibited, the fear that they would normally have, or the reluctance that they would normally have to do something, it's no longer there. So they would think twice of doing before, they would just do it with no fear. So that's another aspect of how the THC works. This is not, on a medical level at least for us, this is not just about the plant. It's about the compounds that it contains and how those compounds get into the brain and affect the way the brain functions. And we need to be clear that this is for real. And that's why I started the program talking about the 8 disorders that cannabis causes on the mind. And I'd like to repeat, cannabis causes intoxication, dependence, abuse, intoxication of delirium, where people start to become very restless, accelerated thought, confused, and then psychosis with delusion, where they have false beliefs, psychosis with hallucinations where they see things which are not really existing, anxiety disorders with panic attacks, and then there are a whole bunch of disorders which are not any of the other of the previous mentioned, but are also associated with cannabis. That is medically for real, that we have clinical experience with, and we can vouch for that. And we need, especially the young people out there, because there's a tendency to believe that cannabis is safe. And that's something that we really want young people to, shift away from. Cannabis, smoking, or tea, or in any other way, as long as you're getting that THC into your blood and it's ending up in your brain,
the exposure is the same.
We're not thinking that it's safe because of the potential to affect your mind. And that's the main thing for us as medical practitioners. We see it all the time, and that's where we get concerned.
Okay, you're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS with me, Kendall Burton. My guest, Dr. Andre Matthew, attorney at law, Mr. Alfred Alcide. We're talking about decriminalizing marijuana. But most of our conversation so far has been on the consumption of marijuana, whether by smoking, drinking tea, that sort of thing. There's a total other aspect, the economic aspect, that's being proposed by supporters of the decriminalization, or in some cases legalization of marijuana, and it's been done successfully in a number of U.S. states, in other countries. You mentioned the bars earlier. Mr. DeCaris spoke about the industrial use of hemp and cannabis, the cannabis plant. We've spoken about the medical aspect of it. Can we now put that aside and say, and I think Dr. Gonzalez made that point when he went to CARICOM, or wrote to CARICOM on the issue. Let's look at the economic benefits. The region is struggling. Agriculture is failing. Tourism is a fickle industry, subject to a number of disasters, whether human, man-made, natural. Let's look at some alternatives. Where do we start this discussion?
Kendall, I think we need to start the discussion by thinking, if we find a way to make money out of cannabis, is it going to be safe? Whatever measures that we put in place in terms of production, distribution, are they going to be methods which are safe enough so that our young people don't get further exposure, or it doesn't become easier for a young person to get their hands on and abuse cannabis?
Yeah, but that's where the checks and balances we spoke about earlier come in.
Yes, and
you put the legal framework that will guide the production.
Yes. Right. Well, you see, okay, the legal framework, but can we do it safely? Are we confident that we can develop an industry now which can produce it and distribute it, actually dispense it, because this should end up If
Well,
it's for
that's why-
medical use,
that's
it
why we
should
have
end
a
up
legal
coming
mind
from
in
a
the house.
pharmacy. It should, can we do all of that safely?
Can we, Mr. Alzi?
Can we? St. Lucia cannot do it on its own, for sure. If you're talking about economic benefits, it cannot be restricted to just St. Lucia. Because, and Doc, I think I want to take issue with the fact that if there is some form of decriminalization, then those in authority, legislature would definitely take the necessary step to make sure it is not abused. Whatever little freedom given to those concerned, those who are involved. You think I'm going to leave my job and go and plant marijuana?
Because
Impossible.
that is what decriminalization is.
Yes.
Perhaps you can explain
Yes.
from a
You know,
legal perspective the difference between legalization and
And
decriminalization.
decriminalization.
Before you do that, I want to remind the viewers that the lines are open. You can call in if you have a question or a comment that you wish to make on the subject. We're discussing the decriminalization of marijuana for medical use.
Yeah. I was saying is we cannot do it on our own because what? You're going to cultivate to consume all in St. Lucia? Are you going to get any economic benefit from that? But if it's a joint endeavor by all member states and maybe some international states, I don't know, then there may be some economic benefit in it. All I'm saying is those who are in authority, they can design, and it takes this course. This is the bottom line. You have to sit down and discuss. With discussion, you have different heads, people who can make a contribution, and you analyze the pros and the cons. Can we do this? Can we successfully do this to prevent our young people from falling? Because I'm saying all these things there. I don't particularly like the idea of young children getting involved in smoking marijuana, because the same way the law restricts young children from having sexual intercourse, or men having sexual intercourse with young children. This is the same idea. You are a child, you do the things children do. If you go outside of that box, then there are consequences. That's the bottom line.
But Doc, doesn't the research also show that the adults are more prone to addiction than the young people?
I'm not sure that there's a distinction between the age groups where addiction is concerned, but what definitely has been shown is that the children tend to be affected more because the frontal cortex, which is where the marijuana tends to act, is immature, very immature. I mean, you're talking about children, even in adolescence, it's immature. So that part of the brain which deals with planning and forward thinking is even more affected in a child. They're less able to assess what's happening and how it's going to affect them in the future. So it definitely is more a problem for them.
Yeah, and also talking about the economic benefits, we had to point out that speaking about economic benefits to decriminalizing marijuana does not mean purely going into industry, but the mere fact that you put certain regulations in place to free up the prison system. For instance, I know in the United States, the latest statistics suggest that 60,000 people are in prison for marijuana possession. If those people were to be freed or sentenced alternatively, you would free up about $1.2 billion, and that could be used for something else.
Yes.
You
And
know?
that's the money they would spend to take care of those people while they're in prison, isn't it?
Right.
Right.
Right. Talking about housing them, prosecution, the whole process.
Yes.
$1.2
Yes, the whole
billion.
process.
That's
Yes.
a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yes.
And you do have, I'm not saying, you see, with all this discussion there, I know there are young children who indulge. I know that. Young people are inquisitive. Now, I have, at the back of my mind, I'm saying there is a possibility if that restriction was not there on cannabis. The question I ask myself, realistically, do we know whether children would indulge in it? We don't know that. We don't know whether they would get involved in it. There are a lot of young people who they know this one smoke. I have my people who are close to me, and then they wouldn't touch that. They have their own mind sometimes, Not because they're kids to believe that they are easily influenced. There are some people who tell you, look, I'm not getting involved in this. I'm not smoking. Period. And Doc, I have an issue with that addiction. Doc, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't profess to have any scientific analysis of addiction of cannabis.
Can I ask you to hold that thought? We have a call. We'll take that call and we'll come back to you. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
I see nothing wrong in that. As a lawyer, you will never want them to decriminalize weed because you always on ganja cases. You know, it's in your interest not to decriminalize weed. And that doctor on the other side there, have you ever smoked weed in your life? You're talking too much about marijuana. You never tried something.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. Let's continue.
You know, I know somebody was going to come with that. You know, somebody was going to come with that. All I'm saying, we have to be careful. Whatever step, whatever action we want to take with regards to decriminalization of marijuana, is something that you cannot just do this just for the sake of it.
Right.
There must be serious discourse among those concerned, whether on a national level, regional level. There must be discourse, and people have to weigh checks and balances, basically. You know, we have to see what effect this is going to have if we decriminalize. Are we going to have more crimes on the street? Are we going to have more guys just being on the block, not doing anything? We have to analyze it.
Okay, let's
Just
take
a straightforward answer.
We have another call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, good night to all.
Hi, good evening.
I'd like to ask the doctor one thing. If I was a patient right now and I was on chemotherapy and I didn't have no appetite, and to me, if I had to, on the basis of my last resort, would you ask me to smoke, drink, or listen off air?
I think you touched on that earlier.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, caller, at the moment, if I was to do that, that would be very bad advice because it's you know, cannabis is still an illicit drug.
Yes.
Its use in all forms, in all occasions, is illegal. So I would not be able to give that kind of advice. If it was decriminalized, then, you know, if nothing else worked, definitely I would look at that as an option, because you're talking about patients who, if they're on chemotherapy especially, can suffer a lot from nausea, vomiting, a lot of issues, appetite loss. And if cannabis helps, and there have been studies to show that it helps in certain cases of chemotherapy treatment, definitely, why would I hold back on that possibility of helping through using medicinal cannabis?
There is such a thing as doctor-patient confidentiality, isn't there?
Definitely.
So if in the privacy of your office or my home, you make that recommendation, is there any danger of a doctor losing his license or that sort of thing?
I think so, but for now I prefer to make that communication with my eyes. You know, I just look and, you know, hopefully you get the point.
Hopefully you pick up telepathy. Hi, good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening. I hope, please bear with me. I just have a few points that I wanted to mention. I listened to the Sanford Bell show some time ago, and Ralph Gonzalez was indicating that it actually cost his country a pretty penny to manage and to keep that whole situation under control.
Right.
And without coming out and saying it, you know, I got the sense that it really was a burden for the country in the manner in which it was said. So he admitted it. So sometimes when, you know, he comes out with these things, it makes you wonder if he's not feeling as the bad boy in the region and feeling left out, and now trying to get others to get on board. But I'm saying that when we talk about trying to put systems in place and how it happens in the bigger countries, one of the things I want to put forward is that those countries have the money and the resources and so on. They are much more advanced than us to be able to manage some of these things. Now you have a small developing state trying to get its head above water, and then you want to be able to do that. I mean, there are lots of things we can't even manage. Now, number two, I want to indicate that I know the situation. I have a young brother who is psychotic because of the use of marijuana, and I can tell you the pain that it causes our family. When he gets violent, the fear for loss of life, and the danger that he is to our family and to society and the systems. Even the police system is not even, as you know, able to support it, because the number of times we have had to call the police to come and get him because he's out of control, and the fear of what he, you know, I mean, it's by God's grace so far that nothing has happened. And sometimes the police don't have the transport, they don't have this, they don't have that. And today, they are already not able to respond to those situations, much less you're having that. And I'm telling you, dealing with a psychotic person is very painful for a family when you see your loved one, a brilliant child,
I accept that,
going down the, you understand?
I accept that.
I mean, I can say a lot about that situation. The thing is, when you're talking about how sometimes it's the propensity to and whatever, in truth, yes. But do we know the number of people who are out there who have that tendency? And unless they get to use the drug, we would not know. And I want to put again, the crime situation that we are dealing with is already so much thing. Yes, you may legalize marijuana and, you know, this person gets to enjoy his religious freedom and whatever it is. I personally think it's selfish to want to legalize something for your religious freedom when it can cause so much damage to a country, when we can't even manage the crime situation we have now. When you think of the unleashing of number of psychotic people, it could be one death where somebody chops somebody really badly because he's psychotic, and then now the courts can't do anything with them because, well, they were not in a rightful state of mind, whatever it is. One situation that affects a nation, think of what happened to Cherise, right? I'm just saying, what if it were like a psychotic situation or whatever? I'm just saying, when those crimes happen, it could be 1 in 1,000. It affects the nation. It is painful. And for you to say you want to legalize marijuana because a few people, I'm not saying, I mean, don't tell me in this entire world that there is no other drug that can help these people and their medical conditions, right? And I'm just saying the pain that a nation will have to deal with now the probability of these psychotic cases and I don't even have the words, but you understand what I'm saying?
We understand, ma'am. We understand.
It's a lot, and
understand
living it, I'm telling you, it's difficult to see your brother going down the drain because of that. And then you have the people around the place giving it to him free of charge. They don't care. The kind of world that we are living in, people do not care. And if they know, they will give that drug to you so that you can be, just to keep you there, and then they can push you out there to go and get anything they want because they know you will do anything.
Ma'am, let me ask you something. The state of mind of your brother, you said?
Yeah.
Would you say that cannabis is attributable to his state of mind right now?
Yes. It has been diagnosed. He's been to the medical, the wellness center on 3 occasions. He has been diagnosed with drug-induced psychosis, and his marijuana is taking, not cocaine, not any other thing.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your call.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that leads me to an interesting point that we made earlier about what she mentioned, the police. I don't think that's a police situation anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your opinion, Doc? Because if he's already been diagnosed, I mean,
that's a medical.
We have another call. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I just want to give my input on this conversation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I got to say, marijuana is legal. When God made everything, everything was good. So it's legal.
Okay.
It's not a drug. It's a plant. And this is for the doctor. You know, all the information is right there. You know, it's psychosis, hallucination. It's all a hypothesis. It's not based on actual facts. All the information I write there. You know, so you need to get your line straight and tell the people, you know, the right stuff and the right information. And the lawyer need to educate himself about these things before he come on air.
Okay, caller. Thank you very much. I think the commissioner will disagree with him there about marijuana being legal. But I want us to go to our second clip for this evening, which basically raises concerns about something we touched on earlier, which is the number of persons on remand currently. So let's take a look at our second insert, and we'll take a call. Let's take a call first. Good evening, caller. Hello? You're on the air.
Yes, I could sense the pain in that lady's voice.
Yes.
Who recently contributed.
Definitely.
I mean, it's obvious in St. Lucia and around the world. We can see the effect of marijuana on the lives of young people all over the place. We see them walking up and down the streets with no goal, no intention of accomplishing anything because of the effect of the drug on their minds. the doctor made it very clear, and studies have shown over and over again that marijuana has a detrimental effect on the minds of people. It causes people to be disoriented. It causes them to be lack of physical coordination, often followed by depression, sleepiness, and so on. Some users even suffer panic attacks or anxiety. Now, this whole idea about marijuana being a sacrament for the Rastafarians, I think that's just something that was contrived so that the people can just keep smoking their marijuana. And as a matter of fact, it seems like the more we hear about it, the more we hear about legalizing it, or the more it becomes acceptable. As a matter of fact, I remember very clearly that documentary that Dr. Gupta came out with. I remember Dr. Gupta clearly indicating the medical uses of marijuana, and then certain strains of marijuana that were high in certain qualities were being used to treat various illnesses. And all of a sudden, it seems like the whole bunch of people that want to promote marijuana felt that Dr. Gupta was promoting the use of marijuana. He was not. He was not. So people, let's get wise. I mean, look at what's happened to our little island of St. Lucia. People are afraid in their homes, because the guys get high. They want to get more money. They go and they break in your home. I have been a victim of burglaries over and over. Get wise, St. Lucia. Get wise.
Sir.
And seek the Lord. It's the Lord that has the answer to this problem.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. I don't think there's any statistical basis for that argument that marijuana is responsible for all of the crimes or the people walking the street listlessly or aimlessly.
Cocaine, yes.
But you want to make a point, and there has been an argument that marijuana is a gateway drug to these other harder drugs like cocaine.
I still don't agree with that.
You want to comment on that, though?
Yeah, I don't know. Firstly, I feel like I needed to say there that I'm not a Rastafarian, but I think people should be careful and always show respect for other people's beliefs and practices. Right. Me saying here that I recognize the adverse properties or effects of marijuana does not mean that I in any way I'm downing it as something that they see as a sacrament. I think we need to always keep respect for everybody who comes up with what they think are religiously their beliefs and their practices.
Okay, we have another call. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to just say that we need to get this stigmatized prejudice thing in our mind, because don't forget the same way alcohol was before. They used to be smuggling alcohol and all of these things before, and eventually society put it on to the people and they accepted it. So we need to stop being prejudiced and open up our mind and our heart. And it's the same thing Jah say, be about love. A herb is a plant. We have to express love to it too. Good night.
Good night. Thanks for calling.
Yeah. So we've had 2 or 3 callers so far who go back to the tendencies that we've witnessed a lot of. Just going to quickly say here that they try to downplay the fact that this is scientifically proven that marijuana affects the mind. This is not anybody fighting down the plant. We're looking at its components, and we have found that THC is a component that affects the mind, whereas CBD, which is in the same marijuana cannabis plant, can have good properties, useful properties for anxiety, for seizure disorders and others. So we're looking at the components of the plant. This is not about cannabis, the plant. It's about what it contains in terms of its chemical compounds.
Okay, we have another call. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening to all.
How are you?
Good evening.
Yes, my thoughts on this whole situation is that society on a whole is just a hypocritical thing.
Oh my God.
Because, hey, we smoke cigarettes. Cigarettes have so many side effects. So much people die from cigarettes every day. For a year, millions of people may die from just cigarette use. And the thing about that too, they even have on the box of cigarette that don't smoke cigarettes, it is bad for your health.
Right.
So that's hypocrisy on a whole. Even alcohol on a whole has different side effects like hallucinating and all of this stuff. So on a whole, what I think should happen, they legalize it and tax it just the way they tax cigarettes and they tax and they tax
I'd asked you earlier, Doc.
alcohol and so forth, and then do it as, because whether or not we legalize it or not, it will still be used.
Okay.
Right.
Caller,
So
can I engage you? Caller, can I engage you before you leave?
Beg your pardon?
Can I engage you before you leave?
Sure.
So I wonder if you heard what the previous caller was saying about her brother having drug-induced psychosis. Did you hear that part?
Yeah, I heard that very much.
Okay.
Too, and that's the sad thing.
So I want to try to explain to you what psychosis means.
I know psychosis. I watch Criminal Minds every evening.
You watch Criminal Minds? Okay. So
Yeah.
so somebody who is psychotic is living in another world that does not exist. And if you stand up in front of them, they may interpret you to be a dragon and they might try to kill you because in their mind they're defending themselves. And you're a dragon and they need to kill you. That's what they're going to do. That's what psychosis can do. And that's in their mind. Now what I want you to be clear about, in as much as I am against tobacco smoke, especially in public, because we now know that secondhand smoking is so bad. I'm as against tobacco smoke as I would be against the recreational use of marijuana. But I want you to keep in mind that even smoking tobacco, which would increase your risk for heart attack, increase your risk for stroke, give you all kinds of problems, you will not end up becoming psychotic because you smoked tobacco. I have not seen a study to suggest
not
the same.
Everybody go mad when they smoke marijuana.
Right, but nobody...
There's always an exception. There is always an exception.
Yeah, and the doctor established
the
that
same
earlier.
way I might drink alcohol and it has an effect that it doesn't have on everybody else. Or
I agree.
You understand?
Yeah, no.
But
So people drink. No, counsellor. Sorry, counsellor. I said no.
The same thing would apply if you abuse any substance.
I like the phrase you use, caller. The hypocritical nature of the society we live in.
I mean,
this is what it's all about.
I mean,
it's hypocrisy.
It is hypocrisy.
Yes,
you
I
smoke
agree with
cigarettes
you,
which kill
I
you
think at
and
some
kill
point I would
people
have said
around
that.
you. We drink alcohol that allow us to kill people on the road while we drive and kill other people because we think we're Superman or Superwoman after we drink.
Yes.
So just legalize the marijuana and tax it. That's my
But
point.
we can't
Thank
do
you.
just like that.
All
We
right.
need some discourse.
Thank you, caller. I want you to make the distinction because she's been using the terms interchangeably. Decriminalization and legalization.
There's a big difference.
Explain the difference,
The
please.
difference, if you legalize, that means, caller.
Yeah, let's take the call. Good evening, caller. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Yeah, I just want to say, so much people that go mad crazy and they never smoke a marijuana.
Thank
stick,
you.
know? And so much people that smoking marijuana that never go off, never go low, and just still there, using up to what they like to do. And marijuana is a medicine, a tree. So I don't know why they should be fighting now young people and people for smoking. You know what I mean? There are people drinking. There are people doing all sorts of things, more mad than that. So I consider it's sent for you to decriminalize the marijuana. Man.
Okay, caller. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let's make the distinction and definition.
If you legalize, no restrictions.
Right.
People can do whatever they want, go wherever they want, do whatever they want, buy it anywhere they want. If you decriminalize, you are placing restrictions on the use, distribution, who can take it. You can actually restrict, just like you pass any other law, any law to restrict what people do.
Yeah, I think that distinction is important to be made. Let's take another
Very
caller. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I'm sitting here in my room listening to your topic, and it kind of hurts me as a marijuana smoker for over 15 years, who has counselors, who has nurses, etc., bank tellers as friends, who we all have been smoking for over 15 years. And I'm so ashamed to see that, including the doctor and some of your callers, that a lot of what you all are saying, I find is not true. One being especially what that young lady just called and said a while ago about you get violent and whatnot when you smoke marijuana, which is so not true. Anybody who has smoked marijuana before will know that is a bold-faced, a blatant lie on the herb that I find that should be defended, because if you smoke and you're high, there is no criminal intention. You do not even want to get up to, what would I say? It depends on the highest. You don't even want to do, there is no evil thoughts in your mind. That is just not true.
So it comes.
All right? All that thing about hallucinations and when you smoke you high and you see other stuff and
it happens to people.
Slow. I smoke before I go to work, which I go to work every day. I am a plumber by profession, and it doesn't affect my work in any way. I give a brilliant work. It does not slow me down. It doesn't slow my thinking. I'm responsible for my actions, and a whole lot of stuff. But I find that there are certain things you just cannot assume or say you have to be to know. You understand? You just cannot sit there and assume or what somebody sees, that person's reaction, and assume, oh, marijuana is bad. No, I believe there are certain things you have to try or you have to know for yourself in order to know what you're telling people.
Okay,
and I think if you do not use that herb if you do not try it on your own as your part of your own research, it really doesn't make any sense. Now, we're changing that a little bit. I'm putting a little pressure on the government now. I find Mr. Kenny Anthony is a very brilliant man, very smart man. You could see what he's trying with the country, But right now, he doesn't have a clue. What I see he promotes is Batman, because that's what I see.
Thank you very much, Colin.
No, listen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's move on. We wanted to look at another clip before we start taking the calls, looking at the number of persons on remand. I want to go to that second clip and then we can continue our conversation. Yeah.
The president of the Bar Association, Andy George, says the association had made a request to the Ministry of Justice for the appointment of a second criminal court judge. Mr. George says that funds may have been a problem. However, he's hoping that during the course of the new law year that the appointment will be made. The bar president lamented the backlog of cases before the court and also expressed concern about the number of prisoners on remand. To date, according to Mr. George, 300 prisoners are on remand, and the average time of 5 years before they are tried is unacceptable.
One can't do it. Some time ago, the High Court had 70 matters being brought before it as new matters before the criminal justice system. And that is in addition to what is already there. It just cannot be done, and every day you will have more matters coming in before the criminal justice system. So there is a need right now for a second criminal court judge.
Has the judge been appointed yet, or is something in the making?
Well, we have urged the Minister of Legal Affairs to see what he can do to assist us in that being a reality. I am aware that some time ago a judge was identified, but the funds were not available to pay for that judge.
Mr. George's statements comes against the backdrop of the recent release of Eugene St. Romain, who was freed on bail after waiting 9 years in prison for his murder trial to begin. The president of the Bar Association is also concerned about the physical conditions of the courts and expressed the hope that legal practitioners will be transferred to new facilities during the course of the year.
We believe that is urgent right now. We think for far too long we have been having meetings and speaking, and enough is not being done. We also intend having a celebration of a law week. By this we would have a public lecture, some outreach programs, a variety show to raise some funds for charity, etc. We also intend hosting some more professional training for members of the bar. So that is our plans, particularly for this year, yes.
The president of the Bar Association spoke as the new law year commenced with a church service at the Seventh-day Adventist Church on High Street, followed by a procession to the High Court of Justice to hear an address from the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Dame Janice Pereira. Her Ladyship spoke on the theme, the role of the court in the region's socio-economic development. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas, reporting.
Can I get your reaction to that story?
No, don't forget we are talking about cannabis, and this has to do with the criminal justice system and, of course, the state of the courts. Well, and this is very, very right. We do have so many cases. You know, we have one judge doing trial. That same judge doing sufficiency hearing, which is a new procedure to replace what is called a PI, preliminary investigation or inquiry, and that same judge is doing any pretrial application to iron out issues, legal issues that may affect the commence or continuation of a trial. That same judge does everything.
Yeah, but I think the argument we were making earlier, or what has been presented in other forums, is that if you decriminalize marijuana or cannabis, free up the prisons, it would result in maybe less cases for those judges to manage. And finance was an issue for him as well. We spoke earlier about the amount of savings the country would make from prosecuting those cannabis cases. That money could very well be funneled to the courts to address some of the issues that you have. Let's take that call. Good evening, caller.
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening to all. Okay. Okay, first of all, I did not hear from the beginning of the show it started and everything like that.
Okay.
But just to bring some balance up to what has been said from the different callers and so forth, I am a very young man who is an ex-addict, right? Marijuana addict, and I was on this stuff for like 6 to 7 years of my life.
Were you addicted to solely
from
marijuana?
A very young age.
Were you using marijuana solely?
Yeah, very, very young age.
Okay.
Let's say 13 years, maybe younger than that. And what happened is that with using the marijuana, I found myself vulnerable to a lot of things. Of course, we understand also that when marijuana in itself, you're not going to get somebody, a priest or a pastor or somebody who's in society that is a positive stigma is attached to giving you these things. You get these things, you know, from the ghettos, people who have negative thinking and people of that along that line. What you would get from them, you would never get anything positive from these people. So if I'm majority of the young people or people that get involved in these things, at the end of the day, the feedback that they get from these drugs people or those children who brought up in homes that they smoke marijuana is nothing positive, okay? And they themselves will rub up on that, and they will become delinquents and whatever in society. I find it very hypocritical of these people who have been calling and saying things like there's so many good things about them. Marijuana in itself being a plant, I personally believe that everything that plant that is grown, it is from God and it has its purpose. When it comes to the smoking of marijuana, this is totally something different. I think this is what the doctor is really bringing across, that it has good properties and could do whatever and so forth. In terms of the hallucination and all these different things, I have gone through this. I could attest to people. You understand? And right now I am so happy that I am off this thing. You understand? Now, I'm not saying that there are some people who are using it who are probably who are not functioning properly and are not doing very well for themselves or whatever. But generally, the use of marijuana, it alters your thinking. This thing does terrible things to you. You know, you begin to be incoherent. You do so many different things, not aware of what you're really doing. And I'm saying to people, I find these people who are calling and just trying to defend the whole thing of smoking of marijuana. Marijuana in itself could be used for various different things, as the doctor has indicated, but to be smoked, I mean, this thing is terrible. It has done, I mean, bad things to me in my life, and I'm so happy that, and this is coming from an a very young man to boot.
All right, thank you very much, caller.
had not come out, get.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that experience with us.
Thank you, sir.
You want to react to that? Doc?
Well, we've heard different people, different experiences. What we keep saying is that the potential for trouble is there. That's what we know. One somebody might not experience it, next will. We just think as long as the potential is there, we need to tread carefully.
Carefully, all right. Understood. We have another caller. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. I will be very quick. I don't have much credit.
Appreciate that.
The lawyer solves legal problems, and the doctor solves health problems. Your body is not a chimney, not designed for smoking, and your mind, you have to guard it. It's very important, very, very important. Marijuana is not good. It's not everything God created on earth was good. Okay, because when people call and speak that's hypocrisy. So what are you trying to tell me there? Can you eat a frog? A frog is poisonous. Marijuana is not good. It's a herb, yes, but God does not. That doesn't mean we have to use it. It's not everything God put on the earth. That's good. Thank you.
And frogs are eaten. It's called escargot. Let's move
Delicacy.
Yeah, you were saying, Doc?
You know, him mentioning that last call there, I remember reading in preparation for this program something which I found quite interesting. When one article made reference to THC as being a self-defense for the herb, you know. In other words, it's a defense mechanism that the marijuana plant has to protect it from herbivores, because they eat the plant and they get all these you know, problems with their mental functioning, and obviously they can't continue eating the plant. So it's suggested that its components are actually a self-defense of the plant.
Okay. You have another caller. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air.
Okay. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Everybody's experience is different.
Right.
Everything the doctor said they have experienced it. My son went through that, and he eventually committed suicide.
Sorry to hear that.
Calls for legalization would depend on, you know, how one feels. Well, I mean, for medicinal purposes, if the doctor says so, I don't mind. But my main concern is about children, because an adult can smoke weed. His business. He's an adult. He can make that decision.
That's the point I was
himself.
making.
But I want to know how or what advice you all are going to give to talking to Mr. Alsey, to the legislators in controlling the people who sell it, because right now children can get it around the corner for $1, $5, and they mix it with all kind of rubbish. And then most smokers would tell you they got their first joint from their friends. Now these children are not discerning. How will they know what's in it? So they smoke rubbish and they go crazy, and they go and you know, everybody hurts as a result.
Yes, I
My
understand.
main concern is how are you going to control the roadside vendors?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Caller, thank you very much, caller, because I remember at some point during the discussion, I made it very clear that I am not too much in favor of children are children.
I heard that.
Children remain children. They're supposed to remain children. They're supposed to grow up as children. And that's one way. That is why we're not talking about legalization. We're talking about decriminalization. If you legalize, there is no restrictions. You do whatever you want. You do it anywhere you want. If you decriminalize, that is an opportunity for the government to determine who sells, where you sell, to whom you sell. You have an opportunity to control it. At this point in time, there's no legalization, no decriminalization. These fellas are outlaws. They do what they want, where they want, and all they do is hide from the police. They're making it worse. If you have legislation in place to control where they do what they do and to whom they supply, then that's a way of having control.
And what they supply.
Yes, and what they supply, a way of having control over fellas in allowing young children, because I'm never in favor of a young child. You need to grow up. You're a child, you behave like a child, you grow up like a child.
It has been done.
And when the doctors prescribe it, are they going to give the patient a test to see if the chemical makeup will be able to deal with the effects of the THC. Thanks, I'll listen on the TV.
Okay, thanks for calling.
That's important, ma'am. Yes.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
So, you know, it's really in specific conditions that we consider, we're even considering that marijuana should be used medicinally.
I think she was talking in terms of after it's decriminalized. Would you
if it is decriminalized.
Yeah, so
you do that anyway, don't you?
You would.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I'm saying is, the conditions are very specific, and most of them are very serious. Those are people who are already very ill. For example, marijuana use for neuropathic pain in HIV patients who have already converted to AIDS. Marijuana use in multiple sclerosis. These people are very ill. Marijuana use in Alzheimer's, which has been proposed as well. You know, if when you're using it in a case where it's already a very ill person and you don't have any other option, you know, you start thinking at the end of the day the benefit is outweighing the risk because they're already so sick. You know, so in those specific cases, we would, I think, if it was decriminalized and we didn't have another option, we would very likely look at it.
I need to point out to the caller, in some states in the U.S. where it has been decriminalized, there are age limits to the persons, like alcohol, who you can sell to. So in some states it's 18, some states it's 21. You know, and as Mr. Alsi quite rightly said, it takes the power away from the street vendors.
Yes.
You know, because we said earlier some of the arguments are that marijuana is a gateway drug. It's been proven, other studies have been done, that it is that case or is that way when it does happen because they are accessing the drug on the street corners. But in countries where it is decriminalized or legalized, where you can go and
on the street corners. You're not there.
So you're not exposed to the harder drugs, the cocaine and that sort of thing that the peddlers are exposing you to on the streets. So we have a few minutes left. Time to wrap up. I want to get closing arguments.
Yes. Well,
am I putting you on a disadvantage? He argues for a living.
Well, I'm saying, you know, whichever position those in authority, I'm going to say those in authority, because whichever position they decide to take, this is something a decision you cannot take in a flippant manner. You have to sit down, you have to balance it out, you have to weigh everything. But and I'm not saying that there should be any rush to do so, but we need to sit down and discuss the effect this will have if there is any issue of decriminalization. But one thing I'm going to say, I'm going to say it, and I will continue to say it, no matter whether anybody is offended. I think police need to stop hassling elderly Rastaman for a little spliff or a joint. I'll say it and I'll keep on saying it, because you're an adult. You live your life. So if you decide to smoke a joint, this is your life. You should not be hassled by any police officer, particularly if you're in the confines of your own home, to invade your home and decide to search your home for whatever they want to go and search, and then decide, look, I just find a 5-bag, arrest you, bring you before a court of law. I think that should stop. In the UK, just quickly, experience in the UK, I was living with a guy who was a fraudster. He's not my friend, but he was doing forged license, forged MOT. Police came there to look for him. They said, are you so-and-so? I said, no. You sure? I said, yes, sir. I know my name. I said, I'm not so-and-so you're looking for. He said, all right, well, we have a warrant to search this place. But also, we suspect we were Rasta. If you have marijuana there, we're not interested. And they came and searched for false documents. They came there, and they did. They found a little 5-pound bag. Left me alone, they're going to do business. And that's what the police, that's the example they need to take. You all need to stop hassling elderly Rastamen for a little bit of spliff, and even their plantation, but only when the government decide to decriminalize. But I will not go as far as the plantation yet.
Okay, Mr. Alsi. Doc, final words?
Well, Council Alcid said it a lot, and I think I'll just conclude by saying the same. Discussions, I don't think you'd lose by pulling people together and talking. There's a lot, in fact, there's a lot to gain, especially in medical practice. Every specialty, every area has its own experience, whether it be marijuana or any other of those touchy issues, homosexuality and prostitution. Why not get together and talk? Let's come together. Doctors come together, then doctors and lawyers and police officers come together, and we talk about these issues, because we have a lot to share. I'm sure I learned from him, and I'm sure he would have learned from me in us being on this program tonight.
Of course.
We leave here having a better understanding. So really, you know, the powers that be should encourage discussion.
That's what it's all about.
And you know, let's see if we could come to proper consensus.
And let's hope that's true of our viewers as well, that you learned something this evening, and that you've taken a position, whether for or against the decriminalization of marijuana, or whether you feel you have a third position,
or a
that
position
the
to
discussion
learn
should
more.
continue.
Yes, to learn more.
But I want to thank you either way for tuning in tonight, for listening. For those who called, thank you very much for calling. You've been watching Newsmaker Live on DBS with me, Kendall Burton. My guest this evening, Dr. Andre Matthew, and attorney at law, Alfred Alsey. Thank you very much for spending the last 90 minutes with us. See you next week.
Thank you.